All right, thanks for joining us. Zach Twardowski here with Stephen Yee and Zeb Foster. There we go. So, Stephen, you've been with FFL for how long total now?
4 years.
4 years. Cool. Me too. Right up a little bit over 4 years. And then Zeb's been here a whopping, 10 months, you said?
10 months, yep.
10 months. And then last year, we were giving Zeb a little bit of a hard time because last year was only here for 6 months and he helped 360 families. So we're taking a picture and we're like, dude, it's a Hall of Fame picture. You can't be in it. But in all reality, in the last 10 months, Zeb's helped 560 families, which is way more than I helped my first 10 months. Like an astronaut, like probably double as many as I helped my first 10 months.
Right.
Do you know what you did your first 10 months, Stephen?
Not that. Maybe like a fifth of that.
A fifth of that. And then your team helped 170 families last month, which is a lot more. Like I didn't even get to VP till 2 years into the business, you know? So it's a lot of growth. So what I wanted to ask you is, you obviously have an MBA in sales from like Harvard or something like that, right? Or what is your background before you started with FFL?
Absolutely no MBA whatsoever. I was a dirtbag fly fishing guide.
Got it. Did you
4
say
years.
dirtbag or dirt?
Dirtbag.
Dirtbag.
Yeah.
Why dirtbag?
I don't know. I was just a crunchy fly fishing guide.
Got it.
Up in the mountains.
I don't know if
way
you're
too
like
much
ripping
sun.
clients off or if it was
No,
just,
no,
oh,
not
okay.
at all. No,
Got it.
no. I was just spending way too much time up in the mountains and having fun. It was great, but absolutely no MBA, no sales experience before this. Yeah, just basically getting paid to fish.
And then, so right when you graduated college, did you move to Montana and started doing fly fishing guiding, or?
Yeah, so backtrack, didn't graduate from college.
Got it.
So no diploma, nothing like that. Moved to Montana a couple years ago and moved up there, was working for a fly fishing apparel company. And so it was some friends of mine, but you know, I was doing wholesale orders, nothing super, no sales whatsoever, but you know, just helping with wholesale orders, new designs, packing, boxing.
And then you were out on the river doing guided trips too, right?
Yep.
Got it. And then so you went. Remind me. I know we've talked about it, but you went to Colorado Mesa University first.
Yep.
Which is where I grew up at. It's a small world,
wow,
right?
really?
Yeah. So I grew up in Grand Junction. He grew up in Colorado Springs, where I live now, but he went to college at first, where I grew up at.
Yep.
And then you played football there, and then transferred to CSU.
Yep.
Which I'm starting to think is maybe a better insurance school because I'm like the only person from CU that besides Kevin that works here, but then all you CSU guys are coming in crushing it. So I might have to become a CSU fan now.
go Rams.
I'm all in because they're helping us out a lot. So and then how did you get introduced to FFL in the first place?
So I was very fortunate from that standpoint. My best friend's brother-in-law is Easton Patton, who is an absolute monster.
Jimmy.
Yep, Jimmy.
Yep.
Jimmy's my best friend, and yeah, so his brother-in-law is Easton, and so that was kind of my introductory experience to FFL was just seeing what Easton was posting for over a year.
Wow.
You know, he was posting stuff on his Instagram story, actual posts. Had no idea what he was doing whatsoever. I didn't even really look into it. I was just like, man, Easton's all over the place. He's hopping on planes, flying all over the country. He's meeting with all these random people in their houses. I have no idea what he's doing. And I was finally at the point where, not that I was unhappy in my old job, but I definitely was looking to make a switch, try and be my own boss, give myself a little bit more freedom,
Yeah.
provide for my family in a way that I was never able to before. And so finally one day I called Jimmy up and I was like, hey, how do I make Easton my boss? And he was like, a couple things. He's not really going to be your full boss. You're going to more work with him than him being your boss. But it's as easy as I give him a phone call. And sure enough, he did. And I quit my job that next day, and I was licensed 2 weeks later out in the field.
Ready to roll. We need to hire Jimmy as a recruiter whenever he gets done in the Air Force. Which, if you're watching, Jimmy, thank you for your service. We really appreciate it. But once you're done with that, you got to come work for us because that was awesome.
Yep.
And he recruited you, which was a home run. So, well, I guess when you first started watching everything on there, what did you think of what Easton was posting? Just out of curiosity.
Well, I knew he was in insurance, but I had no experience in insurance. I was very ignorant to what insurance was to begin with. I mean, I had no forms of coverage on myself. You know, I mean, I'm 25 now. That was kind of last thing that a lot of 24-year-olds are thinking about at the point.
Right.
You know, and so I knew he was in insurance, but to be completely honest, I had no idea past that what he was actually getting into. And so had the further discussion with Easton, and it really didn't take a whole lot of convincing. You know, he explained what the job was, what it looked like, what he was going to be able to allow me to do. And from that, I just hit the ground running.
Yeah. A lot better to be able to go on the fly fishing trips and go on the guided trips than be the one guiding them,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Yeah. Because I've been on a bunch of them before. Like I go with my dad and stuff, and sometimes they throw like another person on the boat with you, and someone who's never gone. Like they get the line all tangled up.
Oh yeah,
How did you deal with that? Because that's annoying, right?
100%.
How did you not lose your? Because people get the lines tangled up, and you have to retie stuff on. So for people that don't know fly fishing, I guess, can you break down like what it looks like to guide a fly fishing trip?
Yeah. So what we were doing with the outfit that I was at, it was a lot of first time fly fishermen and women, people that had never fly fished before. And so I was taking them. It's a completely different style of fishing. You know, the line's different, the rod's different, the flies are different than what people are used to using. And so we would have to guide them from everything of just how to hold a fly rod to start off with, how to cast a fly rod, which is a whole endeavor in and of itself. And then we'd have to take them out there and teach them how to catch a fish. And so all those little things, you know, people did get everything tangled up. I lost a ton of money worth of flies because I was paying for those.
Yeah, because the guides pay for those, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So lost a ton of money every single day worth of flies. But I definitely learned patience from that job because it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's when and how many times and how much money I'm going to lose.
Right.
So I just try to get into that mentality of it's going to happen, you know, just got to work through it and be patient because at the end of the day, they were having a blast. My job was good.
Yeah.
Like I'm not talking bad about the fly fishing industry at all because it was great. I was just looking for, you know, a switch to get into something that was going to be able to open up some doors that were never available to me.
Right. And you talk about that. It kind of sounds like chargebacks, right? You're like, I know 30% is going to cancel. It's not if, it's when. So did that make it easier on you, like having kind of practiced that with the fly fishing to go, you know, I'm having chargebacks. It's okay. I'm not losing. I'm planning for it already.
100%. And I mean, if you just go off the basic number of 30% is going to drop off, then let's just act like 70% that's the number.
Right.
You know, that just makes it a whole lot easier just knowing right off the bat that 30% is going to go away. Because if it doesn't, that's great. That's a bonus.
Yeah.
You know, we all want to go write a bunch of really good business. You want 80, 90% plus staying on the books, but knowing that 30% will drop off makes it a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dude, what I wanted to ask is like, I'm still shocked, right? Because I'm like, 10 months? What did he, how many, what? Like,
Yeah,
like
560.
I know. Like,
Yeah.
that's crazy. And I say that because, like, how did you go from not having any experience in sales, period, to being able to, how many families did you help your first month?
First full month, I believe it was around 40.
Like, I want to know how, like, that's what we need to talk about, right? Because, like, the new agent that's on this call watching this going, I can't even help 15 or 20. How did you do 40? Like, how did you do it? Like, that's what I want to know.
I called Jake Conan and Easton Patton 100 times a day.
Okay. And
And I
what
mean,
did
that's-
those conversations sound like?
Everything, you know. I mean, it was, how do I get better? This is what just happened in this house. I just got no-showed.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I get no-showed? I helped this family. I served this family. We got it done. What were some things that I can use from this moving forward?
Right.
Whether it was good, bad, or indifferent,
All right.
I was calling them because the beautiful thing about it is we do not need to reinvent the wheel. There's no pressure on me
Right.
because guys like you, Zach, Sean, all these people built this incredible machine. And a lot of people had to figure it out in order to make everything for us easier.
Right.
And so I really just took that and ran with it as far as just being coachable. And so I try to call them as much as possible because I had zero experience. I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew how to work. And so I knew if I went to work and asked the questions that I needed to, it was all going to work out in the end. So I was absolutely hounding those guys.
See, I love that because one of the things that I always talk to agents about, I say all the time, like the guys that call me the most make the most money because I can shorten your learning curve. Kind of like what you're talking about. Like, hey, I did this wrong. What did I do? How do I fix this? I did this right. What can I, replicate? That's how I did it in the home. But it's like so many people in this business want to struggle by themselves. And it's like the worst way to do it because it's like you have no help. You don't know what you're doing and you're trying to figure it out. But there's like 40, 50 other people that have already done that can say, I wouldn't do it that way. You know, it was like when I was playing golf or I was learning how to play golf, right? I'm hitting every ball straight to the right. For those of you that play golf, it's called a slice, right? Slicing the ball straight to the right. This is for like months. So my buddy Kevin, he's a pro golfer, and he went to the range with me one time, and I was like, dude, why am I hitting the ball this way? He's like, dude, do this. Slight change. And then sure enough, everything I'm hitting is right down the middle. And I'm like, how long did I suffer without asking for proper advice? Where he looked at it and goes, oh, that's this. See, that's brand new agents. It's like they make a phone call to clients when they dial or they do an in-home presentation, and we're like, oh, yeah, set the table properly. Or, dude, ask for the close. Or be assumptive. Like, we can give you a small adjustment because we're not going to, like, reconstruct your swing. We're just going to just change this. And then, boom, you're right down the center every time.
100%.
Dude, that's this business, is you got to be able to ask for help. And there's no glory in learning this by yourself. There isn't. And that's the beauty of your story. It really is. It's like, I was like, wait, what? How much did you write? Like, because like it's normal in your guys' group, but like in our group and most of the people that I know, it's not. And a lot of it is because they are not coachable, like you said. You know, they say they are when you hire them or recruit them, but by the time they actually start doing the things, you're like, hey, how's your day? It's like, oh yeah, whatever. And I'm like, so you're not going to tell me what happened? And like, why didn't you call me on that? And I'm like, oh, I thought I could figure it out. I'm like, how'd that work out for you? You know, so that's cool, man. That's great.
Yeah. Where did you learn that from, or why did you, like, was it from sports? Was it from background, like the way like your parents raised you, or what do you think gave you that to where, like, it's obviously very humble. You're a very humble person, and you're like, dude, just teach me. I don't care. Because when I started, I wasn't like that initially. I had to learn how to be that way to get better, but I wasn't in the beginning, which is why like my first 3 months. So it was like Zeb's like the fast success story. Mine was like my first full month, I helped 11 families. And then the second full month, I helped like 15. And then the third full month, I helped like 10. And I was like, dude, this ain't going very good, you know?
Yeah.
And then I started reaching out for help. And then it got to where 20, 30, 40 families a month every month after that, because I started letting people teach me what to do. But I had to go, the stove's hot, ow. And then I had to do it twice more. And I'm like, yeah, it's still hot. I gotta ask for help.
Yep.
So how did you know not to do that?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I can contribute it to is sports.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just growing up in a sports background. I played football. I used to race dirt bikes when I was little. And then I got into wrestling when I was in high school, really late compared to what most people get into it. Actually, my first full season was my sophomore year. And coming from that football background, I thought I was, I was the bee's knees. I thought I was the big bad guy on the block. Mm-hmm. Absolutely not. The first day I stepped into that wrestling room, I got my butt whooped.
Right.
And I think from that point forward, I was never afraid to ask questions, because, and this is true, I think, in this industry, no matter who you are, who's your upline, or what your situation is, there's no such thing as a dumb question.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can only learn from it, obviously. And so I think that was kind of the moment where I was like, oh man, I'm getting my butt whooped here.
Right.
And I need to ask questions, and I need to be a lot more humble to actually get where I need to go. And it ended up working out. And so I think that was kind of the big thing, just from a mentality standpoint, of being okay at not being the best right off the bat, especially when it's something that you've never done. No one expects someone brand new to come in and do something crazy.
Right.
There's no pressure on anyone. That's the beautiful thing about this too. It doesn't matter whether you help 10 families a month or, 50 families a month. There's no pressure set on any new agent from anyone on the team.
See, that's what I wanted to find out too, right? Is a lot of new agents that I work with, they want to compare. Well, Zach did this and Easton did that. I have to do that. How did you not have that?
I'm not going to say I didn't have that.
Okay.
Just coming from a sports background, I am very competitive.
Right.
And the way that we were talking about everything is that's kind of just what I thought I needed to do. That's what I thought was normal.
Right.
When you're on a team with Easton Patton and Jake Conan,
Mm-hmm.
you just hear these numbers and, they're telling me what I need to do. And I was like, okay, well, I guess, I guess that's what it is. And so I think that's another big thing is when you kind of have that mentality on your team, and you have a culture that breeds competitiveness in a good way, and you're kind of pushing each other, that can be absolutely massive.
Right.
As long as it's done the right way, which I'm very fortunate our group does it very, very well.
Oh, you guys are amazing at it.
Yeah, because no one's like, I hope he only helps 30 families so I can help 31. It's like, dude, I hope he does as well as he can do, and then I can still beat him.
Exactly.
Right. Which is there's a big difference in that mentality, right? You're not rooting against anyone. You're rooting for them. And like, I'm rooting for you, but I'm rooting for me a little more, you know,
Yeah.
like, let me just do a little bit more and let me see how I can get there faster.
You're not even competing in the same market.
Right.
That's the best part. Right. And it's like, I've worked at so many companies prior that like, we're not on the same team. So it's like, hey, Zach, I want to ask you something. They're like, well, I'm going to give you enough. I'm not going to give you the whole thing because you're not on my team.
Mm-hmm.
See, the beauty of this whole, work relationship that we have with all of us here, and this is the reason why I love FFL. It's like, I'm going to tell you the whole thing. Whether you do it or not, it's up to you. right? And it's like we all work at different. Like I'm in Vegas, you're in Denver, you're in Montana. It's like right, Montana.
Yep.
So it's like we're not even in the same area. We're not even competing with one another.
Exactly.
And so like that's the beauty of this whole thing, man. As I was watching the post game interview when UNC played Duke, right? And it was a good game. It was a great game. And Kenny Smith said on that, he said, I didn't want Carolina to beat Duke because they had a player that was injured or, you know, something happened. I wanted Carolina to beat Duke full force and all their players played well because that means we played a better game. And that's exactly what you just said. Like,
Right.
I want you to help as many families as you can, and I want to do a little bit more. You know what I mean? Instead of wishing that you had a bad game or something like that. And that's what I've learned is like there's two ways you can have the highest building. You can either build your own or tear somebody else's down. And I'd rather take the first route.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think the other thing I've seen from people like you and Easton and Jake and you and all the other people that have done really well is they go, okay, like I think a trap people fall into is they go, this person's doing something they must have some sort of thing I can't have any access to, or they have something like proprietary, right? Like Steven, the other day someone called me and they're like, I heard you guys are only doing good because your team only runs brand new direct mail mortgage leads. I'm like, bro, we live in Denver. There's like 3 million people live here, and there's no leads to come in because the median house price is $800,000. Like, it's not true, you know. But so like, I think some people take that route, and some people go, hey, we see, you know, you guys seem to be doing okay. Like, what are you doing, you know, and what can I do different? And I had to learn that too early. Like, I was like, oh, that person must just have some special treatment or something like that. And you were like, no, like, we're just all people. I just have to learn to do something you've done and replicate it. And you're doing that on the team building side now too. You're like, hey, what do we do? How do we move forward? How do we keep? And I like what you said earlier today, because I was like, you mind if I'm honest with you? You're like, you don't have that. Don't ever ask me that again. And I'm like, sweet. Because I remember one time Sean asked me that. I'm like, I'm good. Just tell it to me straight.
Right.
And you're like, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. You know? So I think that comes from the sports background too, probably, right? It's just tell me what needs to be done and I'm going to go out and do it.
Yeah. Let's just get ahead of this thing.
And if someone else could figure it out, why can't I figure it out?
Exactly.
One thing that I've seen happen more times that does suck is when someone comes out and has a good first month, then they're like, I'm gonna go to Disneyland, right? We'll call it the Disneyland thing. Which for those of you who have not heard that before, it's like you know, you like when they win the Super Bowl, I'm going to Disneyland. It's like, dude, you had one good week and you go blow all your money on vacation, or even something else. Like if someone comes in with a bunch of debt, they have a good week and they pay off all their debt, and they ride this up and down. But you've been consistent with the amount of families you help every month. How can you help a new person not get too high or low if they start having success or failure right away?
Yeah, I mean, controlling your mentality is probably the most important thing with this business and this industry, you know, is making sure, like you just said, you don't get too high and you don't get too low. The biggest thing for me is I wanted to make sure that it wasn't a flash in the pan. I don't come from money, and this is a better situation than I've ever been in. And so when I first started helping families, I wanted to make sure that I can withstand that and I can actually sustain that type of success. What I wanted to avoid was a situation like that. I wanted to be able to reinvest into my business right away. So as soon as I started helping families, I was pouring it right back into my business. And that's never slowed down. If I go out and I have a really good weekend or a good week, I put that money back into the team, or I put it back, you know, into leads or what have you. Because being in an advanced business, it's great because obviously you can fund a business very effectively and you can do it fast. But with the flip side of that, chargebacks are a thing. It scares a lot of people. It doesn't need to scare you. As long as you do everything the right way, it's not scary. You just need to actually be smart about what you're doing in your business. But I wanted to make sure that it was sustainable. And so when I started, I was just trying to make sure I was pouring as much back into the business as possible right off the bat. And I think that's paramount. You and Easton always talk about 90 days. 90 days, go 90 days as hard as you can. Just go to work, put the nose to the grindstone, and just do what you got to do. Invest back into your business, and then you're not going to really have to worry about, you know, the chargebacks. That's not going to be a thing. You're going to already have that buffer that you need to be able to withstand any of those.
Yeah. And dude, what gave me a lot of perspective with that was like, well, I'm going down this path. My wife is doing medical school path at the same exact time, right? And I'm just seeing how much time, energy, effort, and work she has to put in to get to maybe, you know, what would be equivalent of a Hall of Fame producer here. In like, she went to 4 years of school. She's already done 3 years of medical school, has 1 more year rotations, then 4 years residency, and $200,000 in debt. And so what always surprised me was when people came in and had a week where they didn't go well, and they were like, you know, I didn't have success, I quit. like, dude, what world do we live in, right? Like
But
where,
dude, like think about a traditional business, right?
right,
You have to invest 200,000-300,000 and you don't see a profit for 2-3 years.
right.
People come in here and they have a bad week, like you said, I quit. It's a bad,
Yeah.
this business don't work. I'm like, what?
What'd you
And that-
expect?
yeah,
You
and
know what I
that's-
mean? Like that's crazy.
And that's why I like looked at it. I'm like, you have to have some respect for the amount of work other people put in to get here. And you don't have to have the same amount of, but you have to treat it as if you're going to medical school or as if you're starting a franchise or a business or whatever, right?
Right.
And give it the same respect and the same amount of effort into it to see the same result. And it's a lot faster because of the opportunity we have.
Yep.
But you still have to treat it accordingly, right? And treat it like you really are starting a business or starting a career, and not just treat it like you're driving Uber on the weekends, which is fine if you want to. But if you're trying to make this your career, you can't treat it as if it's a hobby, right?
Yeah, and that's I just the more I think about it, I'm like, dude, like someone that's a small business owner, whether they open up a restaurant, whether they open up a franchise, is like, dude, they're working at that restaurant or that store 16 hours, 18 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we ask people to work 8 to 10 hours on the phone, and they're like, that's too much. You know what I mean? And it's like that's the crazy part. It's like I've learned this really quick with one of my mentors. He told me, he was like, treat this like a job and it'll pay you like a business.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of you guys don't know what a business is, so you can't tell someone to treat it like a business because they never had that experience.
Right.
But like most people, if they don't go to a job at 8, they're fired. And he's like, treat this business like a job and it will pay you like a business. And that's facts. Considering what we've, how much does it cost to get a state license,
Yeah.
pre-licensing, fingerprints, and what we can make in a year or two compared to what some of these people have. Like think about that, right, Zach? Like we can build a business in 2 years and partner with integrity and be like massively profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And most traditional businesses in year 2, they're still trying to get out in the black.
Right.
Like that's crazy, dude.
And the reason this one's different than other businesses, though, is because you can fund it all from your personal production,
Yes.
which for me started with, when we moved to South Carolina, started with a order of leads of the 2 years or older mortgage leads that I spent $200 on. That funded my whole business.
Right.
Like once I turned a profit on that, I played with house money ever since then. I had no other money. I had $236 in my bank account when after we moved from Boulder to South Carolina, which was crazy thinking back on it. I'm like, what was I thinking? I like used all my money to move out there and didn't even have anything lined up. I'm like, that was wild. But anyway,
Stars aligned, dude.
yeah, right opportunity at the right time. But like that's what funded the business, that and sweat equity. In other businesses you have to put a lot up front, like you said, right? So I guess Stephen, for you have your background. You did what did you do before FFL? Just give everyone a little bit of.
I was coaching high school basketball, and I I had a little bit of network marketing as a background, not crazy successful, and most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like if I told you, like there's a statistic what the average network marketer makes, and it's like disgusting.
Yeah.
So but I learned a lot. I learned how to sit in front of a client and pitch a product. We called it a sit down, right? A knee-to-knee, a Bentley kitchen counter sale, whatever you want to call it. I learned how to work with people. I learned how to recruit and work with teams. And so like all those things sucked at those previous companies, but like when this opportunity hit, it was like if I took those same skills, brought it in here, like we can do something special.
So, a quick question before you keep going. A lot of people ask, or maybe are wondering, like, can you explain to everyone, because you have network marketing background, how is this different from network marketing?
I can give you a list. Number one, there's no fee. Like every network marketing company, you got to pay to join.
Mm-hmm.
$250, $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is. You got to pay a fee to join, like a gym membership. Number two, every network marketing company has something called an auto ship, which means you pay every month for something, whether it's product or a service, but you have to pay to stay active. What do we pay to stay active? Nothing. So we have no entry fee. We have no auto ship. Every network marketing company, you start at the bottom. We don't have to. Our lowest comp, on the comp grid, most people, I would venture to say, is way above that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's the other thing. There's just number four. I do not have to recruit to make money.
Mm-hmm.
I can sell this service strictly and make a lot of money. So then the argument then goes, well, it's not network marketing, it's direct sales. Well, it's the same thing, dude. Like direct sales still has all those components. So that's why this was so attractive. Training, I had to pay for training, I had to pay for events, I had to pay for national conference. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many things that the network marketing business had that we don't have. But if you look at the business structure and the model, it's very similar. You can have an override, you build a team, right? And so like that's where if you can take those skills and bring it in here for those of you that have that type of background, dude, those are the guys that kill.
Yeah.
You look at the fastest growing groups, they all have some type of background in it. Don't believe me? Go look. Andrew Taylor's #1 group, Grady Polston. He had a background in MLM. Second biggest group, Trey Endicott, same thing. You look at Grady's groups. Grady's #1 group, background in MLM. Worked with him at that previous company. Go to Nina and Hayden, the fastest growing agency. They came from an MLM background too.
Yeah.
Because they all understood recruiting and all this stuff, right? And that's the thing that I think I've seen at FFL that was very interesting. I was just talking to a buddy of mine. We're very good at selling insurance. If we understood the art of recruiting, and it's an art, dude, we'd be in billion like in no time.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do it this year, but like we would cut the time frame in half.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
For people that don't, and I was not a good recruiter by any stretch of the imagination. Like, do my recruiting, I was talking to an agent earlier today, it's been with us for 2 years. And he was like, do you remember how I started? And I was like, kinda. And he's like, you told me to meet me at like 7 in the morning because you had appointments all day. You showed me a lead and you said, hey, look, I helped 15 families. Here's all the applications. Here's the leads. Like, here's the lead. Do you want to do this or no? And he was like, you're not gonna pitch me? I'm like, nah, dude, I'm busy. I gotta run in like 8 minutes.
right.
He's like, I guess I'm in, like you're not even trying to pitch me. It must be good. So like that was my recruiting like background, right? So for people that like me and you, Grady, Andrew, a lot of people helped us get a lot better at recruiting and systems and stuff. And I thought it was gonna be a lot more than it was. Can you talk about how you just introduced FFL to people and how to efficiently recruit people?
Yeah. So I always say that there's amateurs and pros at everything we do. Right. So like we're here for a Roto Hall of Fame meeting, and that's a professional level of sales, right? But you look at the recruiting side, there's amateurs and there's pros. And here's what I mean. Amateurs recruit, and everyone does this, dude. Everyone does this, and it's annoying. They recruit with facts. This is our comp. We have leads. We have free training. Like, but guess what? You say that, I say that. We all say that. Everybody in the company can say that. So what's the differentiator? There isn't, right? Professionals don't recruit that way. They don't recruit with facts. They recruit with stories, and they fill a void. So this is how a professional recruits. They go, Zach, hey, so tell me a little about yourself. Oh yeah, you know what? My family does this, and this is what I'm trying to do. I was trying to get a job here, but they wanted to cap my income, and Zach, what drives you? I want to help a lot of people and this, that. Cool. So now that I know, okay, number one, income capped. You're capped at this threshold. Well, hey, Zach, what I can tell you is if you work with us, there is no cap. But you get paid strictly on performance. So if you do really well, you're going to get paid really well. If you don't do very well, you're going to get paid that way too. How's that sound? Right? Like that. I never talked about comp. I never talked about leads. I never talked about training. Professionals recruit by finding out your why or like your void and plugging it. We do this in the home. Mary, why'd you fill out this form? Oh, if I die and I don't have any insurance, then my kids are screwed. Cool. Let me fill that void with this insurance policy. I get a sale. Why don't we do that in recruiting? That's what professionals do. You know what? Hey Zeb, I know I'm making this up. I don't have enough time with my kids. I'm working 10 hours a day and I got to work overtime. Cool. Zeb, if I can show you a way to get more time with your kids, would you be interested in hearing what I got to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
I never said it about money. I never said, because I can fill a void.
And then you let the Rogue IMO video, which you did, thankfully. You did that for us. I appreciate you doing that. But then you do the legwork, right?
Well, here's the thing. Most people are going to throw up on a prospect. Let me tell you why I made that video. Because when I was recruiting, I had that conversation 15 times a day.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I'm sick of answering the same question. But if I can send you to the video and the video can do the perfect presentation every time because it plays the same way. And then after the video, I go, hey, Zeb, what you like best about what you heard? I like that, I have unlimited income potential. I like that I can possibly build a team. Most importantly, Steve, I love serving people. Cool, man. Well, do you have any questions? Because I can introduce my buddy, Zach. He knows a lot more answers than I do. Or are you ready to get started? Are you A, B, or C? That's not recruiting.
Nope.
I'm not twisting your arm. You convince yourself to join. See, that's the problem with what we have is like, you've heard of this. There's a lot of agents in our company that go, Zach, I recruited 100 people, but they're not doing anything. I'm like, right, because you're too good.
Pipeline's full.
You're too good.
Yeah.
I don't like our opportunity. You don't need to recruit somebody because it's that good. You want them to join on their own. You don't want to convince them that this is the best deal, because that means that I got to convince them to work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that's what we've done a very good job of is letting people know from the very beginning that this is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. And most importantly, like recruiting like a professional. Like, so I recently, this is like my favorite story to tell, right? Recently we hired this sharp girl out of Boston, and she called me at like 4:30 in the morning, and she was like, "This is, I want to talk to you because I want to, see if you can help my situation." So I'm sitting down, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, "Hey, tell me your story. What are you scared of? Like, what makes you think what are you holding back on in life, right? What will be the biggest failure in life? Tell me what you're nervous about. Like, what's your living situation like?" She told me all these things, and I was like, "This is how I think I can help you," right? And then before we get off the call, she was like, "I'm in. I want to work with you." And I was like, "But you have calls with other companies and you spoke to other people too. Like, why us?" And she said, "Because at all the other places that I've interviewed, all they did was talk about them." She was like, "You're the only person that I've interviewed with that asked me about me. And then tell me that you can actually have a solution to fix the problem that I have. So I'm in." And I'm like, well, that's true. How many people's recruiters are selling on facts? And then like, dude, nobody's going to recruit better than you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Nobody's going to recruit better than you because we're the actual agent. And so that's what, I learned recruiting this gal. And what was fascinating was I was like, yeah, why are we talking about ourselves?
Yeah.
We should be talking about them the whole time because, we're trying to see if they're a good candidate. And most importantly, like if it's going to be a good fit.
Yeah. And the right person will do research, like treat it like it is actual business, look into it, watch the Real Guy Mo video, do the right things. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then to your point about the recruiters, like that's how we use our recruiters, is just to get the right quality people, make sure they're vetted, make sure they have the facts, and then talk to Zeb, myself,
Right.
you, whomever, and make sure that person can see if they're a good fit. And that's not a tactical call. That's just figuring out who they are, what they're looking to do. I remember I was like, to your point, I was talking to someone who ends up working with us, and they have a big agency. And that's all I was asking him. I'm like, dude, what can I do to help you get to where you want to go financially for yourself and your agents? And he's like, everyone else is yelling at me about comp and all this, that, and the third, and you're just asking what you can do to help us, right? And that's why he's like, ultimately, that's why I decided to go, because that's what your goal was. Your goal wasn't to recruit me. It's like, how can I better your situation, right? So I appreciate the feedback, Steven.
Yeah, man.
Zeb, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, wants to work with you, how can they? What's your phone number?
Yeah, my phone number is 719-243-0604. They can also direct message me on Instagram.
Awesome.
That's
And
just Zeb Foster at Instagram.
what about you, Steven?
They should reach out to Zeb because he's just being real. I didn't sell or I didn't protect 500 families in 10 months. So like if y'all want to get started with Family First Life, and I say this truthfully, y'all should definitely work with Zeb.
Awesome. Well, that's why we love you.